Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I had to start this episode with a confession. I just got done recording about 30 to 35 minutes of the weekly Q&A before noticing that my microphone wasn't on. It was muted from when I was streaming earlier. So, if you don't mind, I kind of want to get this episode done very quickly. Now, I know I said that last week and it was 52 minutes, but I'm going to lightning round this episode because I've already burned 30 minutes and it's been a very, very long last 4 days of waking up an hour earlier than I normally do and then still needing to do a bunch of stuff throughout the day. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to lightning round this episode to make up for my kerfluffle. And then next week's episode will be back to normal. Unless I do this again, in which case, it won't be. So, with that, let's thank our sponsors, and then let's go on. We have all the sponsors that are, Steel Series, HelloFresh, Advanced GG, all of that in the description of the video below. And of course, thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. They don't have to support. All my content's available for free here on YouTube. Funny thing, though, before I get into the lightning round section, something that was not in my initial take. My mother was looking through my comments on YouTube, and somebody was asking her to ask me to turn on the thank you button on YouTube. I didn't even think about that. I'll probably turn it on, but it's whatever. It's not like something that's going to be pushed or I expect to be used very often, but sure, why not? I'll do that just to answer that person's question. Now, with that, I'm going to get through the suffering of answering all these questions for the second time, and let's go to the bonus lightning round, a whole episode that's not actually a bonus, but it's still the hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Let's do it. Now, fortunately, I remember all my answers to these questions, so I can give you the TLDR version and make it an actually short Q&A. Short, not 52 minutes like last week. The first question was asking about what's the point of the game always appointing a party leader in matched parties? Does it do anything than give a random person the L icon? So the game is built on the precedent that there needs to be a party leader because there are things only the party leader can do in the party. For example, in an alliance raid, the party leader is the only person who can seek to refill the party if somebody were to leave. If you have a loot master on, then you need a party leader to be able to assign a loot master. And on top of that, if you pre-make a party and queue in, the party leader was the person responsible for hosting the instance. Now, it's not really how it works because you're not like peer-to-peer hosting an instance, but they are responsible for entering everyone in, so they are technically in charge. When it assigns them in a duty roulette, it's because they've already built that kind of functionality in. It's essentially assigning somebody into that section so it can throw you all into the dungeon. So there's a bunch of things beneath the surface, beneath the surface that lead to it being that way. I'm going to apologize. I just finished eating before this, before the 30 minutes though. It was like a few minutes before the 30 minutes ago when I tried the first recording, and I'm also congested. So I apologize in advance. It's another reason why I kind of want to get this one done, because I was like fighting to like not cough up mucus through those first 30 minutes of recording. The second question was, by the way, we had hellos from everyone except for one person who was borrowing hellos, and I'll call that person out. How are you liking the number changes that have come with 6.28? I'm indifferent. They've done some good things for the jobs that were targeted, but the things that I'm looking to be changed the most are more systematic. When I look at Machinist, when I look at Paladin and other jobs, I'm looking to see them change things fundamentally. Now, Machinist really is the one that I'm looking at the most. But Paladin, we know, is getting a rework in 6.3. So while, yeah, Warrior got a little bit more potency, it's like, okay, yeah, that's like an easy job to kind of rebalance, Machinist, they threw a bunch of potency on it as well. I mean, that's all it was. It's potency. It's helpful. It's nice, but it's not engaging, I suppose. I'm equally as nervous for Paladins, Dragoons, Astros as we go into the future patches as I am interested to see what they'll do. So for me, it wasn't even about whether it was good enough or not. It's just not as thrilling of a thing to think about outside of, I guess, trying to calculate or look at the results of where they end up because of these things. Do you have any recommendations for getting into ultimate rating? There should be Discords that have fresh/LFG channels. I hate recommending Discord because I just don't like it as a resource, because it's, oh, join this Discord, join that Discord. It's like, bro, I've got 60 million Discords. I remember seeing a quote. It was like Discord replaced, what was it? It was like Discord replaced wikis, forums, and voice programs, and it's worse than all of them, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it said, but Unfortunately, that's where the resources are, so that's what I have to recommend. Whatever data center you're on, just do a quick Google search for your ultimate primal Discord or ultimate ether Discord or whatever data center you're on. There might not be one for Dynamis yet, but you should be able to find something. And also, are the old ultimates even still fun? Yeah, even though you're synced down and some jobs are definitely less fun at those levels, the fights themselves are so fun that you usually just get over those kind of little rotational differences that need to change when you're at level 70 or at level 80. I had a question asking about how to make third fights more relevant, also to say hi to Ivy, but Ivy is chilling right here, and I don't want to bother her because she already sat through the first recording perfectly peacefully, and I'm amazed that's still happening right now. But can they add more relevant loot to third tier fights? The only thing I've really seen suggested is, A, don't have all the leg pieces be useless. That really didn't help this tier and last tier. But also just to add more upgrade materials. Like, for example, making the second fight P6 for this tier. Give the coat, the right side upgrade. Make the second fight give make the third fight give a right side and left side upgrade both. And then also do the same off the final fight. To me, it just sounds like people want to get their raid logging done faster, so they don't have to do split clears, or their split clears can be AA as effective. Let's be real. But it is another reason is that gearing another job after your first main is still a very time-consuming experience, and you're not only gated by tomes, but you're gated by this resource that everybody needs a whole lot of until the odd-numbered patches roll around. So that's some of the suggestions I've seen for the third, and even for the fourth fight of the tier. Here's the person, Jeb the Pleb, insert someone else's greeting here, trying to make use of it. Fortunately, plenty of people had you covered this week. In all my years of gaming, I've looked forward to reworks as an exciting thing because they're essentially adding a new class or character to the game and taking one away I don't care about. However, both my first and second most played jobs are being reworked, and it leaves me in trepidation. I'm curious because I've only been playing since 5.4, but are the reworks simple like Endwalker Summoner or Monk 5.4? And what's the rework that has given you the most trepidation over the years? So first of all, I don't really have trepidation over rework so much. I just play whatever I think is fun. And if what I was playing before isn't fun anymore, I find something else that's fun to play. So I guess for me, I don't really think about it that much. So I wish I had more insight, but I don't. And I wouldn't say all their reworks are that simple. I'd look at the 5.1 Ninja rework, which they've said would be the basis for the Dragoon. Like, that quality of rework would be what Dragoon got, where they kept pretty much all of its most core elements intact and adjusted it in such a way that altered its rotation, gave it some much needed changes to abilities that were otherwise kind of frustrating to use, but it was still entirely itself. And I hope that they can do that with Dragoon and, honestly, other jobs when the time comes, because I think those are the types of reworks that people really look forward to. Then we had one that said they were prediction questions, right? Because they said hashtag I vote for Mr. Happy Mondays. I already voted, as a reminder, here in the States. One, you said on State of the Realm you think Loporrits may not be the 6.3 tribe quest. If not, then who do you think? I didn't say I don't think they'll be the 6.3 tribe. I wasn't ready to commit to the idea of them being the 6.3 tribe. The main reason was because of Shadowbringers. We thought we knew what all three tribes are, but the second tribe ended up being the Qatari. And nobody could have predicted that. There was no way to have predicted that in advance. So with the Loporrits, we have a Loporrit that's part of the Omicron tribal quest. And then we're going to get another Loporrit for the Loporrits as a tribe as a whole. So I think it is the most likely. I think it is going to be what the 6.3 tribe is. But I'm not willing to close the door on it being anything else. I just want to leave that door open for other predictions. What is your predictions for the site of the new deep dungeon? I think the moon would be the easiest. I guess I won't call this a prediction, but I'll call it a hope. I want Ronka. I want to go back to the first, and I want to go through the Ronkan ruins. Ever since the solo instance we get from Shadowbringers, that is what I've wanted, and that is what I'm still hoping for. And then do you think that skipping having an exploration zone this expansion was a big mistake because there's not much long-form battle content? No, I don't think so. Bozja was pretty populated, and Eureka even was fairly populated. So a lot of people did them, but they said it was kind of split. So keep in mind, when you enjoyed something and then it's no longer there, it's easier to feel like there's less content or there's less of a specific type of content. Even if there is something else in its place, if it's not of the same degree of interest to you, it'll always feel the way that you feel. So the way you feel is pretty normal. Here's the thing. I think we wouldn't be feeling this way if the first relic step wasn't so short. And that's why I think, since you're referring to State of the Realm, where I spoke about this, that's, I think, where they actually dropped the ball was, and they have 2 expansions in a row, is making the first relic step very, very quick. Like, if you're going to do that super quick relic step, it needs something else to happen right after for, like, an upgrade of some kind. Because it is a way of engaging people in long-form content earlier, even if it is, like, roulettes and, you know, light farming or whatever it is you're going to do. So, that's the mistake I think they made. Not having the Bozja-style content, which we didn't have till 0.3x anyway. So we wouldn't have had an exploration zone yet regardless at this point, because we didn't have one in the previous. Eureka we had, but we didn't have one in Shadowbringers at this point. So, but I think that releasing an actually grindy relic step later is something they shouldn't have done. That's the mistake I think they made. I had somebody ask me about the editing for my weekly Q&As. And what's the average time for jump cuts between questions? There isn't. I don't want to hear my voice. I don't want to have to do much editing for these. So outside of this one, which will have almost no editing at all, I'll usually look for a spot where it looks like the audio is cutting off, like I stopped speaking in the audio file. I look for a part where my face is no longer making movements that reference words. So it'll be like me going like this at the end of a question. And I'll just cut right there. I don't have like a set time. I just want to get it done and doner and get it out the door for you all to enjoy on a Monday after a long weekend and a long stream day and a long recording day where I've already had to record it twice in a row. Hence why I'm doing it like this week. So no, there's no formula for that. Next one was building on the summoner question from last week. I'd like to see another demi added to the rotation, but really liked your grand summon idea. Do you think they'd hesitate to add another demi because of 2-minute windows, or do you think they could add something like a 4th gem where you could freely summon one of the others based on what you need? No, because if they add a 4th gem, it'll be what everyone's best, which almost always is going to be Titan with the way they are currently balanced. So I mean, yeah, that's a mobility phase, but then you'd have to shorten all the other phases, so it doesn't become a utility, it becomes a must-have. It's just you're inserting it where it makes the most sense. So if they were willing to commit to better potencies on some of the other phases, then maybe it would be more interesting, but even then, probably not. Most of the time, it would fall into being the same one every time. As for the demis, if they want to rework the demis to be every 40 seconds and give them charges, kind of like the way that Perfect Balance works for Monk, it's possible to add another demi and still make it fit within the 2-minute burst window times. They might want to change some other aspects about it, but it's absolutely possible. Moving on to the next one. Somebody had a tank question for me. Oh, I remember reading this one the first time through. It was asking me, why does nobody use tenacity materia? Because they use it. So in Final Fantasy XIV, the way mitigation and healing is done is very planned out. And tenacity does not alter the way you need to mitigate and the way that you need to heal for any player in the party. Is it maybe fun? The idea of it is fun for something like a solo, for example, or and only solos for like old content because you can't use materia in deep dungeons. So I don't mean anything like that. Yeah, sure. Maybe it's a little okay for the solos, but it doesn't in any way change the way you have to use your cooldowns or get to play around the actual fight. So it's already useless there. And then on top of that, the damage that it gives you is worse than every other stat. So yeah, don't use tenacity materia. There are some select cases where you may see bis sets actually use 1 or 2. Those are very, very select times. They're usually based on hitting a specific tier and it being impossible to hit a tier for another stat. So it's still in a way a last resort. It just ends up being the best last resort that you could possibly have. Someone had a cat question asking if Aloha has or has been tested for any sort of thyroid disorder. No, he's a big cat. He's not even 10 years old yet, though. He's going to be 10 in next year about this time. But no, he's a big cat, so he's probably going to have like joint issues and stuff when he gets older, you know, as he gits into his 10, 11, 12 years old. But no, yeah, we get him checked out regularly. They always say that other than being a little big, he's healthy, and he's not even that big for his breed of cat. He's just a little big, to be honest. He also likes to sit in ways that scrunch his fat together, which makes him look fatter than he is. But when you see him, like if I held him out like this, he would look like a normal cat. He would just look enormous, like just as a whole entity, but not as like fat. So yeah, but I mean, I expect he's going to have some issues with that in the coming years, regardless. And then we get him tested for stuff like that. Let's see. Do you look forward to topics other than 14 more? I'm almost caught up to where I was in the first attempted recording, by the way. I'm very close to being caught up at this point. Do you look forward to non-14 related questions in your weekly Q&As more? I'm indifferent. You know, when you do something like this every week, you get the same questions over and over again. Some of them are easier to answer. Some of them are more interesting. Some of them are things that you personally feel about a situation or about a fight or about whatever. I'm indifferent, but I do light up a little bit when somebody has a non-14 related question, assuming I have some insight into it. If I don't have any insight, then I just feel bad. I just have a lot of insight on 14, so it becomes an easy topic to tackle in weekly Q&As. The next one was, do you have any cool HUD setup tricks? No, I mean, you can do a lot with 14's HUD. I just kind of migrate everything to the middle, so that way, no matter what, even if I were to have like a temporary bout with tunnel vision, everything is still kind of within my frame of vision overall. But that's not really a trick or a setup or anything that people overlook. You just have to take everything and move it around the way that you want to. And it's down to your creativeness at that point. So, no, I don't have anything fancy for that. As for also asking about the marker with 3 arrows above you, that's a proximity AoE. Sometimes they do tank level damage. If it's targeting tanks, that means it's a tank buster. If it's targeting non-tanks by default without like an aggro mess up or anything, then that usually just means that they want the players to spread out. Sometimes you'll even see players keep one of those like in a party and just extra mitigate it so the person doesn't need to move away. But yeah, no, that's proximity AoE. Next one, is the next one the one... I think this next one is the one that I'm catching up to. So you know what? I will switch the editing style after this. Now that I've caught up with the ones that I had already answered, the next one that is, then I'll start doing it like it's a normal editing. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. This one was 2 questions. One, do you have any thoughts or desires on what they can do with Island Sanctuary, expanding the base, another island? Well, we know we're getting another island. But another island of doing the exact same thing, I don't think is necessarily a solution. I think that if they want it to be relaxing content, they need more relaxing activities on the island that let you stay engaged with it. The big thing with games that Island Sanctuary is supposed to be kind of representing something similar to, while not being exactly like them, is that you have goals, but you also can just kind of spend your time doing whatever. Like in Animal Crossing, if I just want to go fishing all day, I can just go fishing all day. You know, that's just what I'm going to go do. So I can't do that. Like, yeah, I can go gather all day in Island Sanctuary, but I'm just gathering to get level ups and then to use it for the main. Like, there's a set purpose for absolutely everything and why you would do it. And so it doesn't really feel like you can relax and just do anything you want. Fishing not being there is a big thing. They already said they want to add outdoor furnishing items to it and that they're working on it. That would be a big thing because, you know, it lets people think they have a house when they don't. The farming is, you know, farming and the animal stuff is basically done in an instant, in a heartbeat. And yeah, I just don't think there's enough little things that you could just kind of get lost doing on the island, and that's a big part of what the attraction of those style of games are about. They're meant to kind of eat time almost subconsciously, like you're not even ready for it. Oh, here we go. Ivy's finally awake. And 2, are there any GCDs you wish were OGCDs? No, only because the GCDs I like because they feel good to use, and if they become OGCDs, they probably are going to nerf potencies and stuff on them, and then they wouldn't feel as fun to use. So I'm going to say no. No, I don't think so. All right, and from this point on, we're back to normal. I've now caught up to the 30 minutes I wasted. Those were short form versions of the answers I had given before, and I don't know how many are left, but that's where we're picking up right now. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, ya haps. Hope you're doing all right. I joined during Shadowbringers, but was there a reason why Summoner Scholar share the same class? Are there any plans to expand upon classes? Yeah, so they seem to have had that intention initially. The idea of a class sharing jobs. It was attractive to players. You know, one class levels 2 different jobs, so that's always something. So it's easier to get people trying something else out that way. Like when you level Summoner, but then you're like, oh, I want to try healing, and then now I have a Scholar leveled as well, so let me try healing. Or the other way around. It didn't work out that way at all. It created balance issues. It was annoying for people. And it led to people having no idea how to play the other one and then hopping on it, and it was just a disaster. And also, they soon realized that tying everything to classes was going to make adding future jobs a problem. So that's why they just started making it so you didn't have to go through classes. You didn't have to go through class quests to get the job. It didn't need to be so convoluted. It didn't need to be so time consuming, as opposed to just getting to a level, meeting a requirement, getting a job, and then unlocking it and playing it, and then just doing the job quest. So yeah, it was just too much hassle. It was too convoluted. Also, non-14 related question, but favorite hobbies outside of gaming? Recently got into motorcycling. I've already noticed how many bad drivers are on the road. Bro, I just sit in the passenger seat and I can see how many bad drivers there are on the road. Well, for me right now, it's really cooking. Whenever I'm feeling at like a creative block, cooking is the number one thing that I go to. And that doesn't even have to be anything fancy. You know, sometimes it just needs to be something that eats a bit of time. Eats a bit of time. Like today, you know, I made corn on the cob, which is really simple. I did the microwave method. For those of you who've never done it before, sounds like you shouldn't be microwaving it, but hear me out. Stick a stalk of corn, in the microwave for 4 minutes, and then just literally pull on the stalk, and the whole thing falls out completely shucked, and it's cooked and it's fine. Then just butter, salt, pepper, you're good. And then I made a pork chop real quick. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, a little bit of thyme, just to give it, just so it would, in the pan, give it a bit of aromatics. You can cook it in butter and baste it. I didn't bother with all that. I just rendered off the fat on the side, just rendered off all the sides, made sure they were nice and crispy and cooked through so it wasn't stringy. And then, just cooked it on both sides, seasoned, make sure it has a nice sear. You can also cut the fat a little bit to make sure that it doesn't buckle in the pan. And that's simple. Like, just being able to do something like that and talk about it the next day is a nice little thing to be able to do. I slow cooked that pork shoulder last week, and then I slow cooked the whole chicken. And then, Thanksgiving is coming up, so I can do a bunch of stuff for that. Last year I cooked the turkey and did all the sides and everything. It's experiential. Even though it's at home, even though, people may not necessarily feel that it is. I mean, that's the best part about some of that stuff, is that even if other people, it's not experiential, it's something they have to do or something they don't want to do or don't have time for or whatever. It's just how it ends up being for me. And so for me, cooking, occasionally watching esports, watch League of Legends Worlds this weekend. I haven't kept up with the LCS or LEC much this season, but I'm glad I tuned into Worlds, because that was the best Worlds finals we've had in a very long time. But I'm a workaholic, so I spend most of my time working anyway. And other than that, I just try to find little times for things like that. Cooking, do a few exercises in my living room. I do push-ups every day pretty much. So that's something that I guess I could say I commit to. That's a hobby. And then I'll usually do other little things, like 10 minutes of just quick cardio, just to make sure that I'm not being inactive entirely the whole day. Just little things like that. Speaking of which, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Well met, Senor Felice. What's your favorite food? Man, that has changed so many times. When I was 6 years old, it was literally sliced roast beef from the deli. Anytime my parents took me there, and you know how when I guess somebody who works at a deli, they're cutting the meat. Sometimes they want to know how thick you want the meat, so they give you a piece to taste it. They would always give it to my parents, and my parents would give it to me. So that was roast beef as a sliced roast beef as a kid. I got older. It became steak, and I think it's been steak ever since. If not, it's going to be sushi, but I kind of go back and forth. It's a mood thing, so they're kind of tied for me. It's anything from like a really nice uni or ikura sushi, or a nice juicy steak, and not like an overly fatty steak. I've kind of moved away from doing things like I guess not I did have a prime rib recently, and it was really good, but I don't do that very often. I prefer to have something like a New York strip that has okay marbling, but is really more about the meat experience. So yeah, those are tied for me. Okay, and actually that was the last question. The rest of them are all comments about stuff I guess that we talked about last week, answers that I gave last week, crystal rating, seeing crit variants. A lot of comments about what I said about Kojima, how I don't know why he is so revered. Here's the thing. I'll give him this. And I think this was around the time I really noticed his sort of rock star status accelerate a lot. PT, to this day, is the biggest letdown of gaming, by the simple fact that it never culminated into anything else. PT should have become a Silent Hill game like it was supposed to, and it probably would have been one of the greatest horror experiences. And that's the thing. Kojima's good with experiences, but he's not very good at making games, which is why when I'm playing a game that he makes a lot of the time, I just kind of get tired of it, and that's why I don't get the excitement. I'd rather he just make movies or TV series than make games, because I think that's honestly more up his alley. But PT was a playable experience, I'll call it. And I think that being as good as it was as a playable experience, to then what happened with him with Konami was something that accelerated him. Like, it was after that happened that I saw like the endless praise and adoration that I had never seen before. So I'm not saying that that's the only reason. You know, Metal Gear Solid is a really good franchise. It does some weird things. It breaks the mold in a lot of ways. But I don't see Rockstar status. But also, don't forget the point of that question from last week was to say that we shouldn't hold devs to that god tier Rockstar status anyway, because it is not a healthy way to view someone who could very easily make a mistake. Because then, when you don't like or jive or vibe with a game or something that individual does, it kills you 10 times more. Like Yoshi P, obviously, I play 14 and I do sing his praises a lot. But if 16 sucks, I'm going to be disappointed doubly so, because I've grown this attachment to the work that this person has done over the years. And I haven't even elevated him to that Rockstar status. I know a lot of people have. I more so just acknowledge what he's done and say that it's an incredible thing. But I guess as a creator, maybe, and this is extending the episode because maybe it ended a little too short because of the lightning round way of doing it. As a creator, I've learned to not like when people are put on pedestals, period. It doesn't matter if you're a small-time e-celebrity, like I would suppose this YouTube channel, people would consider that. A big-time celebrity, a game dev celebrity. I don't like people being elevated like that, because it just leads to this sort of unhealthy, I guess, parasocial expectation between the two people that starts with the person who's adoring the other. And it just, I very rarely see it culminate into something healthy. So because I've been on the receiving end of that kind of in an awkward way a great number of times, I sort of have eliminated thinking that way about people as a whole. Maybe it's a bit cynical. Maybe I actually do think it about some people and I don't really realize it because I've kind of blocked that thinking process out for me. But that's just the way that I recognize it. So it's some of it is I also, am not a huge fan of some of the things Kojima does, but a lot of it is also just not ever elevating it to that level, because I just don't think it's a healthy way of viewing it. So that's it. That's all it is for me. On that note, this was the actual shorter side episode that I promised, and it actually ended up being shorter than the entirety of the part that I cut down into a lightning round, because I was mad that I had wasted so much time. So with that, thank you for this episode. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and I will see you in next week's, where we will have a live letter just days before the weekly Q&A. So I expect to see some questions in that. Anyway, I'll see you all for the live letter stream on the 11th at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. And with that, enjoy your week. I'll see you next time. And until then, take care.